Dr. Tzemah Yoreh for selecting those second two quotes and the music, and for coming and speaking with us today about a topic we're very interested in. The Rabbi is the head of a Jewish humanist congregation that meets in New York City, the City Congregation. He is a leader, an intellectual leader of Jewish humanism. He attended the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, where he obtained his Ph.D. in biblical criticism in 2004. He earned a second Ph.D. in ancient wisdom literature from the University of Toronto for the joy of studying ancient texts. He's also an author. I went on Amazon and searched the summations of his books, and are really very interesting. One is called Why Abraham Murdered Isaac, First Stories of the Bible Revealed, and in which he exposes, I guess we could say, the truth behind some of the stories that have evolved over the years. The second book is called So Compassionate It Hurts, My Life as a Rabbi on the Spectrum, in which the summation looks like a personal story of how he combines his humanhood into being a congregational leader. I hope I didn't say something silly there, Rabbi. So, Rabbi, welcome. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to mute and ask you to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Dror, for inviting me. I'm really excited. I regard City Congregation for Humanist Judaism as a sister humanist congregation in New York City, and I'm a big admirer of Felix Adler. So it is really a pleasure and an honor to speak with you on the eve of Yom Kippur. So today we're going to talk about building resilient communities. I think that's a topic that is really at the forefront of our society. We're going to talk about several phenomena and some possible solutions. The talk is divided into two. So we're going to give a first part of the talk. We'll have an opportunity to interact in a Q&A, and then I'm going to give the second part of the talk as well. If we have time, we can also answer questions after the second part. So without further ado, let me begin. Welcome, everyone. In the past 25 years, 40 million people have left the Christian churches of the United States. Most of those who have ceased attending have become more secular. This trend hasn't restricted itself to Christianity, and the number of unaffiliated Jews and even Mormons has also declined, though not as precipitously. This so-called Great Dechurching is perhaps the most profound religious shift that has taken place in our country's history. On the face of it, secularly minded people may wish to celebrate this. After all, that many less people heed the siren call of religious authority and its unscientific beliefs. But as humanists, I believe we would be very wrong to do so. The social capital that has been lost to this dechurching is incalculable. It is a tragedy of unimaginable magnitude. Communities that gave structure and meaning to people's lives, that provided people with safety nets and friends to rely upon, have disappeared, and consequently, people's mental health has deteriorated, life expectancy has gone down, and we've suffered loneliness in epidemic proportions. We are less happy. And that, unfortunately, is only the tip of the iceberg. I don't believe that certain populist politicians would be so influential in our country if it were not for this. People thirst for a way to connect, to find meaning, and they latch on to people who promise them Kool-Aid, despite it being laced with poison. So why have so many people left the church? The growing secularization of our society offers only part of the answer. Yes, there is a disconnect between the values of younger generations and community leadership, but there is always a disconnect that is felt between one generation and the next. We could speak, of course, of the atomization of our fiercely individualistic society, of our need to strike out on our own, that is a deterrent towards community building. But is that really the answer? The United States has been individualistic since its founding, and this is a phenomenon of the last 25 years. Interestingly enough, there are particular religious groups that have resisted this dechurching trend. While the number of secular and cultural Jews has increased in recent polls, very notably, so has the number of Orthodox Jews. Well, when you have many children in a family, you can lose some children to the heretics, but no, Mormons also have lots of children and they are in decline. So what happened? So what happened in the last 25 years that has led to this decline, and how have Orthodox Jews escaped it? Well, you might have guessed it. What has happened is the internet, and in particular, social media. Every generation is different than the one before. So to quote a favorite blog of mine, Erraticus, our teenagers date less, they have less sex, they drink less, the rate of illegal drug use is way down, and they don't party. But this collapse in social vice is not because they've taken solemn vows of moral purity. Believe me, I'm okay with my kids not having, not doing sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Maybe rock and roll. It's because our teenagers don't leave the house and don't have physical embodied community, not in the same proportion as we had it growing up. Well, what do they do instead? We, all of us are on our phones, devices, hours upon hours. This sudden shift away from socialization has had a profound effect on how human beings interact. Not just our kids, it has helped dismantle the basis of communal life, which is thick social connections. And we really, really cannot blame kids. The apps, the games, social media have been designed to be supremely addictive, and it takes particularly strong will to resist their siren call. Many of us who remember the time before peak digital have some natural antibodies, but almost everyone spends more time, more hours hooked up to devices than 25 years ago. There are just so many more devices around and so many more opportunities. In the same blog post, Erraticus goes on to say that the social engineers who can solve the atomization produced by digital culture will be the leaders of the next big social and religious movement. That may be true. But what if solutions are already staring at us, or at least pathways to solutions? For that, I want to briefly consider what is distinctive about Orthodox Judaism that has allowed it to weather this digital storm successfully. Orthodox Judaism has one technology-free day per week, and more if you count the holidays, such as the one tomorrow, or Rosh Hashanah, or other ones. On Shabbat, you cannot use your smartphone. On Saturday, you cannot use your smartphone. You cannot binge on your favorite shows. You cannot play Minecraft. You cannot check Facebook or surf the net haphazardly, or umpteen dozen other digital occupations. You are coerced, sometimes not very gently, because these are, after all, strict commandments or social expectations, to interact with others, because there are many, many less options of digital activities, of other activities. Every Saturday, people have meals with their friends and create community. And so, Orthodoxy has thrived, has withstood this digital tidal wave. Until this point in my sermon, you may have mistaken me for an Orthodox rabbi. I have, after all, spoken about how Orthodoxy has been successful. It's managed to evade the great dechurching, but I am not. I am not suggesting we emulate Orthodoxy. I'm suggesting we learn from it. The great secular philosopher Alain de Botton wrote a provocatively titled book, Religion for Atheists, wherein he discusses some of the world's religions' great ideas and how they can be employed by secular society. We'd be remiss if we were not to take ideas that worked. One of the principles of humanistic Judaism, my own community, is to draw wisdom from wherever we find it. Society has woken up in a drunken stupor from its infatuation with the digital. We are slowly realizing the great harm social media has brought into the world. Elon Musk, for example, has helped spread anti-Semitism in America to its highest level since the Second World War through liking and retweeting vilely racist posts. Superstars like Kanye West have been given a platform. Nazi Nick Fuentes is normalized. Partisanship is at levels not seen since the Civil War. We are finally starting to regulate social media to curb our consumption, where we are probably not doing this fast enough. And this is only one piece of the puzzle. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting we abandon technology. I'm not a Luddite. This is on Zoom after all, and in my pocket, I have my phone in case the connection goes bad. in case I lose my talk. That actually happened to me more than once. I am using technology to make my life easier, and I'm not planning to stop. In the battle between man and app, I'm determined to eke out a victory. A few years ago, I read this wonderful book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. The subtitle says it all: an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. One of the key insights of this book is that human beings are creatures of habit. If you want to accomplish something, even something big, put it on your calendar and do it every day, even if it is for 5 minutes. I brought this into my life, and it has been a game changer. You should see my Google Calendar. I have things scheduled every 15 minutes, things like writing poetry, learning web design, doing 100 push-ups. In practice, the increments are even smaller than 15 minutes. Now, what does this have to do with the subject at hand? What does doing push-ups have to do with maintaining community? Orthodox Judaism has maintained its patterns for almost 2,000 years. It has preserved its concept of Shabbat, of Saturday, and that has been its bulwark against the digital tidal wave. We can establish our own bulwarks, our own patterns. Establishing healthy habits, healthy patterns are key to good mental health and thick social connections. What if my calendar told me 3 times a week to call a friend, see how they're doing, check in on them for 15 minutes? What if my calendar told me to think of ways to reduce my carbon footprint for 15 minutes a day? What if my calendar told me to volunteer an hour a week in my community? What if my calendar told me to celebrate a milestone or holiday once every couple of weeks? Well, you can push back and say, oh, that's artificial. You are making this up as you go along. No, you are making it up. Because it's not the Google Calendar or your iPhone or your Kindle that is telling you to do anything. You're telling yourself, reminding yourself what is healthy, what is beneficial, how to make progress. Establishing healthy, thriving communities requires a commitment to patterns, to traditions, to maintenance. But the devil is in the details. How should this look? That is one of the big questions I have for us today, and I welcome your thoughts. So now we can move to our Q&A. If you have questions, Dror, will you be the moderator here?
Yes, so this is not the end. This is like an interlude where we're going to discuss the idea of that the Rabbi Tzemach just brought up, that we create community through habits, through, if I understand you, and you're actually speaking to people who do this. We're here. We're the ones who absolutely agree with this, and here we are. So somebody else. Rebecca.
You're muted, Rebecca.
Sorry about that. I'm on this tech all day long. I should know better. I think it's as simple as walking in gratitude. I don't want to say so simple as, but daily, every moment with some gratitude, we raise the vibration, and it gets us past things that are like resentment and anger and all of the frustrations of daily life. Because in any moment we can say, what am I grateful for? And I think that a lot of our culture historically has built that in. We say thank you all the time. It's like a common thing. We've got this nice little, meme in our phone where we can put our hands together with grace and gratitude. There's always something to be thankful for. And I think it's an important, in every moment, way to be more holy.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And to do this on a daily basis, I like, being quite deliberate about these things. That's me, in thinking about how it works in communities, and just to, I would put those kinds of things on my calendar. It seems very artificial to say, okay, let me spend 10 minutes a day being grateful, or 10 minutes a day calling a friend, or 10 minutes a day doing this. But it might be artificial in the beginning, but really it helps maintain good continual habits and make us healthier and happier human beings.
I think I'll add to that, like in my mind body when I want to respond to something with some something like anger or debate, or I'm not happy with something, I also ask myself, what in this moment can I be grateful for? So it's a different way to prompt it than on the calendar. I'm prompting it when I see myself reacting with something not positive. I say, oh, but also. And so it's a way to sort of look at anything as a moment to learn and
That's a wonderful idea, Rebecca. Dror? Yeah.
I had Tom, then Bert, and then Kim.
Thanks, Dror, and welcome, Rabbi. Fascinating and important talk. So when it comes to dealing with social isolation, people can still bowl alone. They can do, and I must say this is quite commendable, do their 100 push-ups in isolation. But yeah, what is at the atomic level in terms of engaging with the world? Tasha Paley, one of our members here, is cultivated the idea of the small group, whether it be for performances or discussions of issues and actions. We have a small group that talks about that every week. Is the atomic level for doing this the cultivation of the small group? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I spoke about this at the individual level, and it works both individually and communally. Like, to have one of the aspects I didn't talk about, say, about like very religious communities, is their calendar is absolutely filled to the brim with things to do together with people. Meaning it's not once every Saturday. It's you can go to daily prayers every day of the week, or even 3 times a day if you wish, and engaging community building. It's so it's just there's a thickness to it. And yes, small groups I believe are key to this. And what are small groups? Jewish culture has even gone as far as defining what a small group is. It's a group of 10. That's what's called a quorum. It's it underlies the fabric of the way these communities think about themselves, and I really think we do have a great deal to learn from that. And yes, I see some of these things are not, of course, original ideas. And thank you, Adam, for sharing, action for happiness and such. We're a self-aware bunch of people. We recognize these problems, and I'm definitely not the first to talk about the ills of social media and such. And we have developed lots of crowdsourced the ideas to overcome this. Yes.
Just a quick aside, the rabbi was referring to what Adam wrote in the chat, so everybody could see it. Maybe, Adam, you could tell us about it later. Next is Bert, and then Kim. Bert, you're muted. Bert, you're muted.
I'm unmuting you, Bert. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dror. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Tati. I was a member of the Society for the Advancement of Judaism, the Reconstructionist Synagogue, at the very same address as is indicated is where you're located. So apparently you have some relationship with each other. Tom, our president, our fine president, mentioned that we have a small discussion group here, which tries to foster community as well as insight based on trying to relate our ethical values to the issues of the world. And we meet Rabbi this afternoon at 3:30, and I would like to invite you to attend.
I would love to attend these things. This is the day of Kol Nidre. I'm a very big fan of ethical culture, by the way. But this is like the day. This evening, I have my own services that I'm organizing, and it is like a jam-packed day. I was very, very happy for the opportunity to speak here today, and I hope to join you for other events. Thank you very much for the invitation.
No, I certainly understand that. And We keep in mind that we meet weekly, every Sunday at 3:30. Now let's get back to the subject, of course,
Sure.
but it will be a bit of a, it might seem, at least initially, a bit of a deviation from the subject, but I don't think it is. I don't feel that de-churching or the digital world are the biggest culprits with regards to the problems that you indicated in your introduction that we read about. I am far more concerned about other destabilizing forces. I am much more concerned about the opioid epidemic. I am much more concerned about poverty, inadequate healthcare, racism, economic decline, homelessness. Would you comment on that, please, Rabbi?
I absolutely. I'm not. I'm not intending for this to be, exclusive. I'm pointing to just pointing to a general pattern of society. All these things come together, all part, of our societal malaise. I'm rhetorically emphasizing a particular aspect, and I'm trying to make the point of how certain communities have resisted this and been able to establish good patterns that have resisted digital the digital influences, the siren calls. And I would, as a humanist, those problems are, at the forefront of my own thinking. I'm pointing more to the general shift in societies that we have undergone in the past 25 years.
Thank you.
Him?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you so much for your talk in terms of social media and the internet. I was wondering if you had any advice to parents, especially parents who are raising children who were born during this internet and don't know any other way. It feels like to me, especially when I was raising my child, that we spoke a different language, that I thought that she was playing games on the internet, but that was her whole world. And now I have a 13-year-old nephew, that this is his world, and taking him away from his computers and his devices, we sometimes use that as punishment. And I feel like that's the wrong way to go. It's not teaching anything. So I'm wondering what lessons or what approach can parents use to re-engage some of these young people who seem like they're more addicted to the devices than they are interested in being a part of family and community.
Thank you, Kim. I have 4 young children. This is a paramount concern of my own. I mean, the way I can tell you, I can tell you what I do. I'm not, to combat this, and definitely all my kids have, the siren call of the digital begins at age as taught, when you're a toddler. My children live in a device saturated world. I kick them outside, meaning I take them, we take them places very, very often. We take them to parks, we take them, to museums, we take them outside, then there's less, not that there's zero opportunity for devices. You could always have a Kindle or a smartphone or an iPad that you take with you, but there's somewhat less opportunity. And what if somebody is already addicted to it, or already, this is their world? I would just, my son, he's 11 and a half. He has his own computer and he works on his computer. And just, I do impose limits, but recognize that is a way which he connects to friends. I have a strict policy in my own household about, my child does not have a smartphone, and I will not give him a smartphone until he is 18, and I will not let him be on social media until that age as well. Meaning, I am wary of that. But you know, I realize that for some that's not an option. You already have kids on social media and are not inclined to take them off of social media. You know, it's just I would say, like, you know, if that is the case, to just redirect them to social media, beneficial social media, you know, to social media that builds connections. That if you use social media to meet together in person to do something, meaning not, you know, don't spend time on Instagram for the sake of spending time on Instagram. Don't spend time on TikTok for the sake of spending time on TikTok. So, you know, is that sage advice? I don't know. That's the advice that's working for me right now.
Hati, is your hand up, and Rita then? Then Fiona?
Yes,
Hati,
it's just,
yeah,
I can't raise my hand electronically because I'm the host.
go ahead.
Hi, Rabbi. You know, in the talk of social media and versus community, which I totally agree with, and I'm passionate about creating community, and I have very many different communities that I organize. One of the things that I noticed is, like, for myself, there used to be that I would look for community because I wanted somebody to talk about topics that I couldn't find right near me. So now I can go on a Facebook page and a Facebook group and have now 3,000 people discussing that topic with me, which is a very attractive thing as opposed to talking to 3 other people, you know, somewhere else. So I understand the pull towards that and why that feels fulfilling in many ways. So what is it like for, like, in my life right now, the main thing that I have with community is things that we have in common, be it children or homeschooling or martial arts, or, you know, so like there are activities that we do together that bring us together, which is harder to do when it's like in an organizational level, right? So what do you think could be sort of the middle ground in that? Like, what can we do together that would attract people enough for them to show up and get to know each other? Because it's easier when you already know each other and you go, this person's counting on me being there. You know, that
Yeah.
could maybe fulfill that need.
Yeah, and I would say that this is a particular problem for secular communities. Secular communities tend to be secular people tend towards much more individualism. They don't want to be told this is the way you do things. So, you know, so it's you know, that much harder to attract. And yes, you have communities of common activities, like you have communities of baseball fans or communities of martial arts or communities of parents, but those communities are like limited or restricted to very particular activities, and sometimes those communities develop into wonderful friendships, and don't get me wrong, it's absolutely amazing. But when, you know, organized secular community is something very difficult. And, you know, so I'm actually going to, you know, in the second part of my talk, offer some thoughts on this and what we can learn from Alain de Botton or from organized religions, like how they have tackled these kinds of things, and what you know, what in particular draws people together. And one of them is, like, you know, for us, you know, we're a specific type of community. The City Congregation for Humanistic Judaism is a specific type of community of Jews and Jewish people with Jewish family who, you know, come together because they share a set of values and believe that you know, that Judaism should be celebrated. Our cultural is a cultural rubric, and so they, you know, we come together and celebrate the holidays and try to foster a sense of identity. And so that there we have a broader sense of commonality. Yeah, there is, I think one of the ills is, you know, for us is something that I'm trying to address, is like the membership model. You know, so there, you know, and in particular that's concerning to me. I'm a community leader. I lead my community, and, you know, membership dues pay my salary ultimately. And, you know, but you know, something that I grew up on. My parents, I grew up on in a non-hierarchical academic environment, and my parents, you know, instilled in me a healthy disregard for authority, rabbinic, academic, whatever. And I think a lot of highly educated secular people, share that kind of why is he telling us how to do things? And that I think is that's healthy, but so it's like there's a minimization of self. And so I'm one of the things I've suggested to my community is to move away from the membership model, like the idea that you have to be a member of the community to participate in communal life, and that is a bar that a lot of people they don't want to necessarily have, and find it onerous or find it and it works. There in other countries we don't have this idea of members of the community. You have like varying circles of connection rather than that, and that can work. So I don't know. It's a very difficult question that we really have to tackle as a secular society.
Rita had a hand up, then Fiona and Liesel, and then we'll hear the conclusion of we'll have a piece of music. So there'll be more time afterwards. So Rita.
I'll unmute you, Rita. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Tati. Thank you, Rabbi, for your talk. I'd just like to comment on something you said. Well, you indicated during your talk, and also Rebecca, you said something about how your calendar is, everything is listed in its chunk, full of things to do. My calendar is not like that, but a part of my calendar has to do with something Rebecca indicated this morning. Has to do with the start of the day is to meditate and to focus, so that just in case I go out and I'm almost hit by a car, instead of me swearing, not that I don't swear, I do swear, but what helps, I'm helped with starting the day being focused and being grateful, also being grateful that I wasn't hit by the car. So we have methods that can help us through our journey, help us through, and it's not necessarily found in church, or it's not necessarily found in ethical culture. It's a part of it. Part of it is the church, part of it is ethical culture, but there are things that you are able to do to help yourself fulfill that calendar that has so many things is listed. I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Rita, and I completely agree. I think part of how I see community is that it helps foster that in individuals. Meaning it helps create it helps create just the environment in which we can feel a part of something, and then and just to be have that well of good feeling and confidence and such in ourselves, that we can sustain that kind of thinking into and have it be part of our days. I completely agree. It doesn't necessarily, the calendar works for me, and I'm a particularly detail-oriented person, but I completely agree with you.
Fiona?
Hi, thanks, Draw. Let me just put my hand down before I forget. I usually try to be succinct, but your talk has sparked so many different thoughts in my brain that I think there's going to be a little bit more of a longer preamble. And speaking of cultural background, I mean, I was always raised back last century in Australia that you're always very polite, you don't say any, you don't question anyone else's way of doing things. But I have to say, if your oldest child is 13 years old, and even if you have this kind of control now that you can control what they're doing on social media and with the friends, I think you're going to get a bucket of ice water challenge on your head pretty soon, as somebody, who's who's raised 4 children. And I would say that the older 2 are very clearly a completely different generation and worldview from the younger 2. So that kind of makes for us a very complicated, I don't know, challenging situation, because we don't really understand how they make connections. And sometimes, I can't even talk to my 18-year-old. I don't understand what she says half the time. And when I start to talk, they just say, I got it. That's enough. The 5-second attention span. And I think that the whole social media, DMing, TikTok is an important kind of community for that generation. And whether it's from their kind of growing up in a technological and rapidly changing world, or if it's post-COVID. But I think it is really important. And now my question is, do you have any, how do we connect, since we don't really know how to use those tools? We're not part of the community, but obviously we love our children and their friends, and we want to bridge that generational gap. So that's the question after that long statement.
Thank you, Fiona. I am fully expecting any day that bucket of ice water to land on my head. My eldest is 11 and a half, and I'm expecting that to happen any day. So yes, I believe that the modicum of control that I have over his actions is going to decrease precipitously in the coming years. I have no illusions about that. And I always seek the wisdom of parents with with teenagers and older children to see how they have dealt with that. And I would say no, I didn't mean to, as I said, I'm not a Luddite. I don't think that social media is completely for ill in society. I think it was, during the first months of the pandemic, we could have not survived without Zoom or without social media. It was critical to our well-being. And I would just regarding social media, I would just say use it for good. Try to encourage good usage. You're chatting with your friends, you're DMing, you're on TikTok. Just say, well, why don't make a suggestion? Hey, why don't you bring your friends over or something? Why don't you meet together to do something, right? Not like saying, okay, get off of TikTok, stop Instagramming. I don't think that is not going to work with an older teenager. Definitely not. That's just gonna invite a lot of pushback. So I don't, yes, I want to approach this with a great deal of humility. I don't think that social media is evil. I think that it's warped right now, but it can be used well. It can be used for benefit. I have my book, Rabbi on the Spectrum. I'm on the autistic spectrum. I have 4,000 members, and we have conversations, and that are meaningful to me. And that is something very valuable for me in my life. And that's how I use Facebook beneficially for myself. It's I think social media can be used that way.
Liesl?
Mine is short, but I think there's a personal element of modeling kindness and outreach that I think has to be built into these groups. And I must say my examples are DrawCon. There's something where he communicates, I'm glad you're here. You, particularly Liesl Burns, came to this meeting or are willing to talk to me about this. Fiona has this quality of kindness and outreach, and but it's something about adding something very personal, not task oriented. Vandra, more and more, she reaches out to people, has a kindness about the reach out. It's all right with me if you don't come, but this is important to me, and or you are important to me. So I'm offering that element of personal
I think that,
personality, sense of humor.
yeah, no, I think those types of people are vitally important in our lives. It's to experience that kind of, to have people who seek to connect us with other people, seek to include us in communities, evince that kind of kindness. Those people are absolutely critical community builders, and for me, those are, I seek those people out. They're, I find to be a little too rare. The more the better. And so I'm very glad that such people exist in your community, and that they've helped foster that sense of connectedness.
Okay, great. Thank you, Liesl. I think for mentioning my name. I tell you, it's an act. I'm performing. I'm trying to be a nice guy. I'm not really such a nice guy. Ask my but it's really, sometimes it's like you do it because it's anyway. Thank you, Liesl, for noticing. The rabbi is going to have another chunk to talk to us about, but before that, we're going to take a break for a piece of music. The rabbi mentioned today's Kol Nidrei. It's the day before Yom Kippur, and I picked a piece of music because it's Kol Nidrei, the song, and it's about a family that kind of is talking about what we're doing, coming back away to that tradition, which is the son left and came back. It's Al Jolson from the first movie that had sound. How interesting that they picked this theme to be part of the first such an important historical movie, the coming back to your tradition. So Tati will play that for us. It's about 2 minutes long, and then we'll come back to you, Rabbi.
Vakhi If you want to.
Rabbi, I couldn't help thinking that if you take away your son's phone, that's what you're going to see. Anyway,
my son doesn't have a phone yet.
I know. I was just thinking that social media and being torn from it's very moving, and I can only try to imagine what this must have been like to watch when it was made. Anyway, please continue your talk, and everybody in the comments, there's some really interesting thoughts from Adam and John and Jules about the issues that Bert brought up. And I want to tell you all, if you write these comments, this is a group for you. You're very, very much in a community that thinks like you, with this interest in end of stage capitalism. I mean, you're in a good place here with us. Come back. Anyway, now take it away, Rabbi.
Thank you, Jor. I want to share a story, a Hasidic story, a story that takes place in the 1700s and the 1800s in Poland. The Hasidic communities are still among us. We see a lot of them in Brooklyn, of course, but all over the world. And they are one of the more successful communities numerically among Jewish communities. Very, very foreign to a lot of to our thinking, to somewhat alien. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. I want to first share a story. Okay, so this story is called A Recipe from Paradise. On a journey to visit the Chozeh of Lublin, a rabbinical figure, Rabbi David of Lilov stopped at the home of a dear friend with whom he hoped to make the rest of the journey. His friend was quite poor, yet he asked his wife to prepare a meal for his beloved David. The woman was shocked. All she had was a bit of flour, not even a pinch of salt or a drop of oil to add a bit of flavor. Still, she went out to the forest, gathered twigs for a fire, mixed her flour with water, and boiled dumplings for her husband, their friend, and herself. When Rabbi David returned home from Lublin, he told his wife of his journey. When I ate with my friend, his wife prepared a meal of such delicacy that it tasted as if it were flavored with a spice from Gan Eden, from paradise. Never have I eaten such food. Knowing her husband to be of a mystical bent and unimpressed by things of this world, Rabbi David's wife knew that this delicacy must be rare indeed. She set off at once for her friend's house and asked his wife to share the recipe with her. What delicacy, she said. It was flour and water. No, the other insisted. My David said it tasted like something from Garden of Eden, paradise. Suddenly her friend's eyes grew wide with astonishment. Gutem Himmel, she said. When I was gathering the twigs for the fire, I prayed, saying, I have nothing with which to honor Rabbi David, but you have the Garden of Eden. So please, won't you add a bit of spice to these dumplings I'm cooking for Rabbi David, and so you might find some enjoyment in them. It seems that my prayer was heard, that a bit of that spice was added. Okay, that's a very short story. Let's not focus on this woman's magical thinking, but rather on the deep value she placed on doing her utmost to welcome a guest into her home, and the hope that when we do try hard, we are appreciated. I asked my spouse, Aviva, who understands religious communities better than I do, what Jewish tradition present in Orthodox Jewish communities in particular reflects this inherent humanism. Without pause, she said it was the tradition of hospitality, the way in which these communities open their homes to each other without hesitation, to host friends and families from afar or people in need, to Jews of whatever background. I've seen this so many times and have been a guest in homes all over the world, and this is undoubtedly true. But there is more to take from the story of the dumplings and water. It's the sense of wonder at the seemingly simple, seemingly mundane aspects of the world, finding metaphorical paradise or transcendence in our everyday lives, in our routines, finding perfection in flour and water. Hasidic Judaism has been so successful in evoking this wonder. It is omnipresent in their stories and in their writings. In particular, they have been successful in finding this transcendence in the mundane. Yet, yes, it is cloaked in mystical and theistic language, in magical thinking, in patriarchal constructs. But it is this sense of wonder that can be shared by so many, by rich and poor, women and men and children, that distinguishes Hasidism from other Orthodox communities and is part of what allows it to grow to this very day. Transcendence is a controversial concept for some secularists, but I think evoking it is key to maintaining communities, both religious and secular. Allow me to quote from another blog, The Mortal Atheist, who reviews the interesting book, The Power of Meaning by Emily Esfahani Smith. In The Power of Meaning, Emily Esfahani Smith presents 4 pillars that she sees as foundational to creating life that feels meaningful. The pillars are belonging, purpose, storytelling, and transcendence. Belonging is secular enough. No issue there for atheists who want to feel their lives matter. Who doesn't want that? But transcendence, well, most skeptics will have a visceral response to that word. Let's linger on transcendence for a moment, though. Do transcendent experiences or feelings have to contain elements of religiosity? The Merriam-Webster definition of transcendent is exceeding usual limits, extending or lying beyond the limits of ordinary experience, being beyond comprehension. Google offers surpassing the ordinary, exceptional. Of course, transcendence has historically been claimed by religion, but I think we can wrestle it away from magical thinking. There's also a variant of transcendence that interests me, this blogger, and that's self-transcendence. I like his definition of self-transcendence in an experimental setting. Transient mental states marked by decreased self-salience, ego death, and increased feelings of connectedness. So I agree with a lot of this definition, but I want to challenge one particular aspect and expand on this. This Yom Kippur, I am thinking about how to build resilient communities, not just focusing on self-fulfillment, on the personal. How does one find or achieve transcendence in the context of humanist communities in particular? During our Rosh Hashanah discussion in my congregation, I was struck by a particular comment of somebody who talked about singing in the shower versus singing together as a community. Some of my favorite moments in my community are when we sing together. When we sing, we find togetherness, we soar, we can experience a sense of sublime wellness. This can be enhanced when we sing songs where we find ourselves in deep agreement with the sentiments. I'd love to sing more. There's so many good songs that express my values, our values, and in my congregation, we have many talented singers. I sadly am not one of those talented singers, though I make up for it by being very loud. So you can ask, who is this hippie rabbi? I thought he was a rationalist. He's bringing in Hasidic stories and speaking of a barely defined transcendence. Yes, transcendence is hard to define, and that is good. It is by its very nature a concept of beyond. It's like describing a taste. You don't know it till you experience it, and everyone experiences it differently. What I know is that this ability to wonder together, to experience the sublime together, strengthens the thick bonds of togetherness, which are so key to community. Since this is Yom Kippur, one final word about forgiveness. There is a saying, to err is human, to forgive divine. I've never liked this statement for obvious reasons. To err is human, but forgiveness, well, that's human as well. But there is one thing this saying gets right. When you truly forgive, you have to go beyond the hurt, the betrayal, the pain, and arrive at an understanding that the person who wronged you is an errant human being just like you, and thus entirely fallible. In forgiveness, we transcend the present situation and leap forward into the unknown. We alter the predictable patterns of grievance and retribution. We transcend intractable dynamics and shape our own destiny. This Yom Kippur, I wish us all a moment, perhaps many moments, of transcendence. Thank you very much.